All right, Malika Dahir brings her passion for equity work, storytelling, and leadership development to Rise as the executive director. She began her work in storytelling and narrative change when she noticed the absence of positive images of Muslims for her children. She started Storytime at the local co-op as a way of sharing positive stories and images that represent Muslims for her children and their schoolmates. This expanded and led to programs like International Storytime, held at local libraries in Shelby County, where she introduced the larger community to colorful stories about Muslims and Islam. Through this venture, she has shared various Islamic traditions, both indigenous to America and from around the world, building bridges over stories and spiced tea. From there, Malika managed the local child care center for 5 years that has gotten local and national accreditation under her tenure. As a majority Muslim center, Malika worked to build relationships with the local community, forging connections with the local library, firehouse, and continuing with a monthly story time. Malika comes to Rise from Pearls of Hope, an organization dedicated to mentoring Muslim children and youth here in the Twin Cities. In this role, Malika oversaw all operations, including her passion of connecting youth to mentorship and volunteer opportunities. Through her work with Pearls, she has won the Visionary Leadership Award from the Islamic Seminary of America and Rabata. Malika is a wife and mother to 3 beautiful children. She is a nomad who has lived in many places, including Mogadishu, Toronto, Memphis, and Memphis before calling the Twin Cities home. She holds a Bachelor of Art in Political Science and Environmental Studies from York University in Toronto, Canada. I'm happy to pass it over. So yes, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. What a great introduction. And I think you guys have like my entire life story in a nutshell. And with that, we'll conclude this presentation. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I've lived here for about 7 years now. I love the Twin Cities. I'm out in the suburbs now, begrudgingly, but I'm Minneapolis. I call Minneapolis home. And happy to just jump into the presentation if you want to put that up. All right, so I'm just going to jump in and tell you a little bit about RISE. It stands for Reviving Islamic Sisterhood for Empowerment. And the reason that we have come together at its inception is there was an increase in hate crimes and Islamophobia, lack of networking opportunities for Muslim women, and little to no women in leadership, especially within our own institutions, right? Few women engage in community and lots of charitable giving, but no philanthropic approach. If you want to go to the next slide. So in 2015, Noshina, our founder, got together with a few women and we wanted to figure out, like, what can we do about this? Because there's a narrative out there that that I certainly didn't grow up with, being born and raised a Muslim. I grew up sitting at the feet of my mom and my grandmother with stories of women sheroes, as we like to call them, of revolutionaries who resisted colonial powers in Somalia from both the British and the Italians. We grew up with hearing stories of women jurists and philanthropists and doctors and nurses and things like that. And then moving to the West, certainly Toronto, and then here in the United States, that just did not exist. So what a few sisters got together to do was talk about how are we represented in the media largely. And that was as either victims that needed to be saved or as terrorists that need to be feared. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So what is our mission statement? Our statement is to amplify the voice and power of Muslim women and reclaiming our narrative. As it was mentioned in my bio, I'm certainly a storyteller, a connector, and that is what resonated to me about Rise. If you want to go to the next slide. How do we do it? Next slide. So the first one is building sisterhood. So if you go to the next picture, you'll see that we do a lot of networking, whether it's self-defense or brunches or little incubators that show you how to run a nonprofit or all sorts of like interest things like book clubs and things like that. So we provide women with opportunities to network, and the fundraising kind of is married to that because we do have wealth in our community, right? And the opportunity to form a giving circle, collect funds, and then go ahead and donate it to worthy causes. Next slide, please. Through storytelling. And then if you want to go to the next slide. So this is a project that's near and dear to my heart and how I came to find out about Rise. There's a project called the Muslim Sheroes of Minnesota, where we went on a quest to take back our narrative, right? With digital shorts. We partnered with TPT to do these digital shorts. And when I moved to Minneapolis, I saw the story of Sister Valerie Shirley. She was the very first Shero whose story I saw on TV. And she is a mother, she, teacher, graduated and all of that. And her young son was diagnosed with meningitis and as a result lost his hearing. So she went right back to school, learned an entirely new language of ASL, and started the Minnesota Deaf Muslims Society. So here we are, there's a large void in storytelling and narrative of Muslim women. And here Rise was showing us a Shero who reimagined her entire life, if you will, and decided through she identified a void and decided to fill it. And as a result of MDMC, we have all these Muslims who wouldn't otherwise have access to projects like this, or otherwise wouldn't be able to reap the benefits of even, things like going to Jummah or Friday service, if you will, who now have access to all sorts of wonderful things. And this was, to me, the stories of my childhood, of powerful women who identified a void, who filled that void and, made a positive impact on their communities. And these are a few of the Sheroes that we featured. And this year, we're taking those digital shorts and launching our very first coffee table book of Muslim Sheroes. We hope to have it in stores and shelves at schools, because these change makers and trailblazers are our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our teachers, our classmates, and their stories need to be shared, because we're ordinary people in one instance, but also extraordinary and certainly not in need of saving. The next slide, please. We also do this through leadership development. One of my favorite things that we do at Rise is the annual Muslim Women's Conference. Shameless plug. It is coming up on March 11th, 2023. And this year, we're going to be talking about self-love and liberation. as women generally of all faiths, we're always told to be resilient and to plow through and wear all these hats and just keep chugging. This year, instead of resilience, we're taking it back to self-love. And these workshops, these development tools that we're trying to give Muslim women is, the first one is going to be journaling from grief to joy, so that you have coping mechanism, you have the tools to be able to navigate feelings and emotions. A lot of us come with trauma from previous places we lived. So we have a therapist who will be teaching tools to navigate through trauma. Another one that we're going to be doing is a workshop from entrepreneurs. We have Hilal, who is the first hijab line to launch in a major department store at Nordstrom, and Flora and Noor, who's the first halal skincare line to be sold at Ulta. And they're going to be sharing with women how to go from your side hustle and make your passion project. Because if there's anything the pandemic taught us, we don't have to be married to the clock or married to our desks. The world is huge and there's lots of opportunities. And certainly, especially like in immigrant communities, we have that entrepreneurial spirit to take that side hustle and make it your main thing. Past workshops that we've done in our leadership development included financial literacy, investing, how to buy a home. So it's certainly, the leadership development piece is also near and dear to my heart. The top, I don't know if it's your top left or top right, that is my daughter attending the very first Women's Leadership Conference in the light green, and she was 10. And I remember we had just moved from Memphis, where there wasn't a big community of largely visible Muslim women, to a conference with 250 Muslim women. I knew she had to be there. So, having had a good relationship with the founder, I begged and pleaded and perhaps even bribed a little to get her in, because, I just had to share this experience with her. Next slide, please. So, due to the pandemic, we didn't have our 2021 conference. We had a fantastic one in 2020. And then we came back last year with reemergence, rediscovery, and chugging on this year with self-love and liberation.